going on, everybody? Welcome on in here to the Auburn Undercover podcast, Auburn Undercover YouTube channel. Nathan King, joined by Jason Caldwell. We are here later than usual outside of the Auburn football facility. Just had a conversation with all 5 of Auburn's offensive assistant coaches as day 10 of practice. Kind of crazy to think about already in the third week of preseason camp, but just kind of wanted to do a bit of a different practice report, a bit of a different camp report based on our conversations we just had in there. And so, Jason, we were talking before we got rolling. It seems like, we mentioned it last week on the show, Jackson Arnold had a good week of practice. Yep. And Ken Austin, the quarterback's coach, saying that he graded out well. They continue to be pleased with his decision making. At the same time, I did hear Ken Austin say, now it's taking that next step of kind of, doing everything the right way and now being more consistent, because the explosiveness and all that's there, but trying to become a more consistent offense.
Yeah, he said they've done a really good job in first downs and doing the short passing game, those kind of things. I think that's good when you start talking about that. But yeah. I think one of the keys and something I'm gonna write about is that how different it is when you start to focus on an opponent, whether that's quarterback, offensive line. Those are really the 2 biggest ones, because you narrow things down and you begin to go, hey, look, here's the look we're getting. These are the things we can do off that look, instead of right now they're just kind of running plays. And so I think quarterback-wise, that's a big deal, because you start to go, hey, what do we do the best in this situation? And now, right now, you're just like, hey, let's just run this play. And so I do think there's some things that when you start to focus on opponent, which probably starts to begin maybe the end of this week after that scrimmage, then I think you start to narrow the focus. I think that helps the quarterback, because right now, it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You're just like, we're throwing it all out there. But overall, seemed to be really pleased. Said, look, he's graded out really well in the scrimmage, did all the right things, and it starts with decision making, which is, hey, processing information, making the right decision. He said, look, he was really, really good in that department.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the scrimmage because we heard a little bit today about that from the assistant coaches. I thought it was interesting that I asked Derek Nix about it, the offensive coordinator, running backs coach. He said, just again, it was that consistency part. The plays are there, the flashes are there. That's the word that he used. And then Jake Thornton talking about his offensive line group, he said, I'm waiting for them to take over a scrimmage, take over a play. Hey, it's a 3rd and 10. You cannot have pressure here. You have to convert them to go out there, because he said, look, we are so talented. And Derek Nix said, look, we have so many weapons. So again, it comes back to that consistency piece. That's what they're going to be looking at here in the second scrimmage on Friday.
And because of the other side of the equation, they made it tough. We heard from guys going, hey, look, this defense is making it really hard on us. Just talked to a couple of guys, including a couple of NFL guys, and they walk out going, man, that defensive front, that was our question mark.
Yeah.
And we have people leaving that are seeing Auburn for the first time going, those guys are pretty good. And so that, to me, we said, hey, look, question marks for this team, middle of the defensive line, linebacker group. And we're hearing people say, look, those guys have been really good. You add that to what they're having to go up against now, and you're like, okay, there's some tests going on, and they're making it a challenge. And I think, as Ken Austin said, look, the give and take is what you expect. There's days the offense wins, there's days the defense wins. That's what you're looking for, and that's what they're getting so far.
Yeah, Derek Nix said on that note, you just have to make sure there's a response. It's okay if he said that's the mark of a good team, is one day you go out there and one side wins, one day the other wins. He said you just can't let the defense stack up practices, drives, plays where they're going to win over and over again. Speaking on Derek Nix, he had an interesting story about the recruitment of a guy like Omar Babson, who has been a standout player, a guy who's been a surprise player so far this preseason, should still be in high school. He said, going back to that, he said it was shortly before Thanksgiving, so all the way back last November, Omar called him and said, look, I might be able to reclassify. They had to get their, the academic stuff tucked away. But he said it's just very rare, and you guys have watched him for a while. Derek Nix said it's very rare for a freshman, let alone a 17-year-old, to come in that physically ready. Yeah. We've seen that at practice a couple times, because he's a tough guy to bring down.
He is. 5'9", 213, physical guy. He's always been that way, and he's gotten bigger and stronger. And when you're 17 years old, you get bigger and stronger. You also get faster. And so Omar's a guy that I think you start talking about what does he bring to the table? Can he come compete? Running back and corner, to me, are the 2 positions on the field where it's the easiest for guys to come in as freshmen and compete, because you don't have to learn as much. Yep. If you can run and get downhill, they can find a way to get you the football. And so I think you look at Omar, he's given himself an opportunity. The door opened a little bit because of some injuries and things that have been in the running back position. Because of that, he's a guy that's taking advantage of that. Now, we'll see how much of that factors in when you start to narrow things down and get ready for a game on the road right out of the gate. I won't be surprised to see him early in the season get some touches.
Yeah, the thing about talking to Derek Nix today was he was not shy about the fact that anybody in this room could get carries, but at the same time, he was not ready to to name any sort of, or like say, how many guys he wanted.
Yep.
He's like, nope, still too early to figure that out. And we knew that this offseason they could go by committee at running back this year.
Yeah, they could. I think I don't know that we'll have a game where there's a guy that gets 20, 25 carries.
Yep.
We haven't seen much of that anyway, but I think you'll see. The question is who are the carries going to when it's crunch time?
Yeah.
That's what they'll have to figure out for this team. I think they got guys that can get it done, but who's the guy that gets it done when it matters the most? I think they're probably still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that really stood out to you today.
No, I think, to me, when I think about offensive line, it's just the numbers of guys. You think about the 6 guys that we've talked about whether it's Too Tall being a guy that's kind of the swing man on the offensive line, but you go Xavier Chaplin, Dylan Wade, Connor Lew, Jeremiah Wright, Mason Murphy, and you think about the 6th guy in that group, but then you think about the next guys, and Jake Thornton rattled off 6 or 7 guys, a bunch of young players that have really performed well. He said Jacoby Ward had his best day today. Dylan Senda continues to come on. Cale Ellis, he's 17. He won't be 18 till next summer, and
That's
he's
crazy.
on the college campus. Basically, your number 2 center right now. Now, they might play an older guy in a crunch time, but he's a guy that if they had to have a number 2 guy to start a game, he might be it.
Yeah.
That's the next group, and we're just not used to talking about next offensive linemen at Auburn being guys that are impressive. And Ty Buster, you said, look, Ty Buster's getting some snaps in one-on-one pass rush stuff just to see what's it look like. Those are valuable players, and these are young guys that are getting some of that tutoring right now.
Yeah, Jake Thornton said that was their biggest question of the entire preseason was what are they going to do at backup center. He said, like we've been talking about, Dylan Wade would be the guy if Connor went out right away. But if you need somebody there as the immediate backup, actually on the depth chart, he said Cale Ellis is further along mentally than he thought he would be. He said physically already, like we talked about, really impressive for being so young. But the mental aspect of everything is there. And so it'll be interesting this week. We'll get to hear the other side of the coin. Of course, a lot of offense stuff today, talking about how good the defense has been. We'll probably hear from the defensive coaches how tough those receivers are to guard, how tough Jackson Arnold has been, with his decision-making, all those sorts of things. So we'll get the other side of that coin on Wednesday. We appreciate everybody for tuning in to this quick edition, post-practice, post-meeting, media, whatever you want to call it, with the offensive assistant coaches. Head over to auburnundercover.com. We're going to have all kinds of coverage and stories and all that good stuff from our conversations today. So appreciate everybody for listening. We'll talk to y'all soon.